Hey, good morning. Yeah, is anybody out there? Tom Hall says, is anybody out there? That's my question. Apparently, there are some folks who are out there, but only a few of you are showing up in the chat. Yes, it's been forever. Good morning. I hope you are well, Goldmorn. And so I think the mystery may be solved. We'll see how things go. Far behind life and everything. Yeah. It's been, I don't know, it's been that kind of a summer for me too. I feel like I don't know. Vegan Sister, good morning. So one of the things that I'm talking about today, one of the things that I'm going to talk about today, good morning, Luna F, is that I'm heading to Chicago. I know. Yes, hello, old friend. I know, it's been a minute. I was really frustrated with this whole live streaming thing. I wasn't able to get things to happen the way I wanted to. I checked out some alternatives to you now, and I thought about using this OBS, which was great. I could stream and people could chat, but I couldn't guest, and I don't know if I really am ready for an hour. I don't know if I'm ready for an hour with just me talking and listening, like reading off questions in the chat. Yeah, that's not that exciting for me. The I think by far the most engaging live streams have been when someone's hopped on and we just have a conversation and people get to kind of throw in their 2 cents here and there. So for me, it's all about that, having people being able to guess. So then the other alternative, the other option was doing a hangout on air, but I wasn't sure how that worked as far as people chatting. And so that got to be, wait, yeah. So we're back to you now today, and I believe I have figured out what the problem was. I basically reset my entire account and like reconnected to everything. It was actually giving me a message that it was giving me a message. I see your question. Let me finish my thought. It was telling me that my that for some reason live broadcasting wasn't enabled on YouTube, but then I'd go to YouTube and it would tell me that it was already set up, so that was a whole big thing. So, what is the deal with me in Chicago? Here's the deal with me in Chicago. I produced that conference and got to meet a lot of amazing people. Some folks were here from Chicago, obviously, Morning Kearney. Obviously, some folks were from Chicago. Good morning, Mad Blender. Everybody's here? Everybody's here this morning. So I think definitely something is up. This is a good sign that you are here, which means you're probably getting notifications from YouTube, which means that this broadcast is going to be saved and archived on YouTube. And people were so disappointed. We have had such amazing, amazing conversations that are just gone now. They're gone. There's no record that they ever happened. So I'm really excited that to think that this may be somehow broadcasting. And also, I don't know if it's broadcasting now on YouTube or if it'll just be archived to YouTube. So anyway, all that said. Um, so yeah, as I was saying before I got sidetracked, and you guys know that can happen with me. So some of the folks who were here in Chicago let me know that they had something that was happening in Chicago at this time. And my friend Julian, who I only get to see once a year, if I get to see him once a year, because he lives in Brazil, is going to be there as well. And one of my dearest friends in the whole world, if not my best friend, I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to say who your best friend is, but he is certainly one of my oldest and dearest friends in the world, is in Chicago. So I'm going to spend some time with him. He's throwing a cocktail party. I'm a little anxious about the cocktail party because the last time I was at a cocktail party at his place, I ended up sitting next to uh, the Brazilian diplomat in Argentina. It was a long thing. I ended up learning Spanish because it was such a stressful situation when I was in Argentina anyway. So that'll be happening. I'll get to hang out with Julian Boal. I'll get to hang out with other people who are TO, Theater Review Press practitioners. in Chicago, so it should be a great time. Obviously, the camera's coming with me. Obviously, vlogging will be happening from there if possible. I can't bring my whole computer with me, so they won't be going up live while I'm there. But I may do a little this or that from my phone. We'll see. So, places to eat: Karen's, Chicago Diner, and Native Foods. I am copying these right away and pasting them into notes, and I will offer them up to my host as options. One thing that yes, Luna F, that is, yes, Julian Boal is Augusto Boal's son, yes. Um, yeah, one of the things that my friend loves to do is take me out to eat. In fact, in one of the messages, in one of the messages, I hate to be sharing his private messages, but one of the things he says is, obviously, he says, um, somebody's calling me right now. Nope, sorry, decline. Can't take your call right now. It says, it all works out. I don't have anything planned for us, but there's tons to see and do, and me being me, eat. Yeah, so they'll definitely be going to restaurants. So it'll be great to offer him those options. And of course, we can sidebar a whole list of things that you think I should do while I'm there. Vegan Sistah. So, yeah, I can't believe you won't be there. But then, this whole other thing, you're actually where you are now. I think puts you maybe even a little bit more. It's not convenient, but I actually, I'm constantly going back from here east. So the chances are we might meet on the road at some point. I don't know. Maybe not around Labor Day, but at some point. And that said, Mad Blender, I don't know. Have you guys gotten to connect? Mad Blender, Vegan Sister, I think you guys are close to each other. Okay, now look. Yeah, yeah. If Vegan Sister and Mad Blender are about an hour away, where Mad Blender's maybe, I think you're like 45 minutes away from like where if I'm driving to back to New York City. So we should definitely plan some kind of meetup soonish, I'll say. And maybe around Labor Day. I don't know. That might actually work out. So, anyone going to be in New York on September 2nd for the march? Oh my goodness. Will I be back? I won't be back on September 2nd. So, yeah, who's going to be there? Tell me about the march. How did I not know about it? What is the march? Vegan Sister says, I will be in Hawaii Labor Day weekend. Well, um, yeah, what march? I want to know. Tell us about the march and what's going on. And, all these folks here, somebody's going to have to jump on here and guest. The official Animal Rights March in New York City. I did not know about it. Why isn't the word getting out? Why aren't all the vegans talking about it? I definitely am going to say something about it on the channel, and I think those of you others, content creators, please talk about it because I knew nothing about it. I won't be back in New York City in time for it, but I definitely will encourage people that I know there to go. So, yeah. Matt Blender says, I haven't made a vid in forever. Yeah, you haven't, but I haven't really watched a vid in forever, so I still probably have some catching up to do. Yeah, so, yeah, I want to know, like, why don't we just have a little catch-up session? I think people who are watching this broadcast would love to know what's been going on with some of our, prodigal content creators who haven't been doing a lot over the summer, but it's totally reasonable. Yeah, I've been busy. Absolutely. I understand it. You guys know I've barely been able to get out a video a week. I've barely been able to get a video out a week. I, have been doing some reviews of films. Not that they're super easy, but the research for it is watching the film, and then obviously if you want to be able to talk about a little bit of the background of the making of the film or the context that the filmmaker is in that might make the film interesting. What have I been up to? The truth. Okay, so what I've been up to. So you guys know probably the last thing people know that I did was I produced the conference, and then I had the group here from SUNY Purchase, and they're coming back, by the way. I think they might actually be making 2 visits next year, so that's pretty exciting. And then I was in Hamlet. I was in this production of Hamlet, and that closed in July. My brother was in town, and that was awesome. And since then, like the only thing I feel that I've been doing that's been productive um, is I'm taking an acting class with the artistic director of the Plowshares Theater. And Plowshares is a theater that's been around for about 20 years in Detroit, and they focus on the African American canon. So they do plays like, from folks like, everyone from Lorraine Hansberry to I want to say, there's so many folks. Obviously, August Wilson is in the group there. Um, there's actually a Detroit playwright who's gotten a lot of attention these days, Dominique Morceau. So I've been really learning a lot about what's been happening in the African American theater scene, because there is a little African American theater scene. But what's sad is that there's so many amazing playwrights that just aren't being produced because, black plays are seen as such a kind of they're a thing. It's like gay plays, right? So it's like, do those stories fit in with a mainstream audience? Yes, they should, right? We shouldn't, look at it that way, but we can't do too many of those in a season. And since most of the theaters are run by people who are more interested in doing, things like Shakespeare and Tennessee Williams, even though those playwrights are long dead. We're not seeing a lot of new plays being developed out in the world anyway, in the hinterlands anyway. At least ones that not plays that are getting enough attention that there can be broad knowledge about them. So what's great about Plowshares is that they are helping to kind of spread more broad knowledge about playwrights that otherwise you might not hear about. So that's been fun. And with that, I do a certain amount of just like work, like learning scenes and learning new monologues, which has been awesome, working on monologues again. Been reading a lot of plays. And other than that, I'm on the board of directors of 2 organizations. I try to keep it low key, but it's hard. I did go to Minneapolis, and that was a week ago, maybe. I was in Minneapolis, and I was doing a workshop at the Democracy Convention. So that was a little something. I know, it's like I said not much. I haven't been doing anything, and then when I think back on it, it's like, oh yeah, that's my problem, is that I do so many things that it feels like nothing. But that's what's going on with me. But I want to know what's going on with you, and I'm sure that some folks who are watching right now would love to see your faces. And look, it's like you can actually have some content on YouTube, right? Come on, have some content on YouTube, and just be a guest. So that would be awesome. So yeah, what are you guys up to? Do you want to get on here and talk to some folks? Do you want to talk to me? Can I see your faces? Can I make sure that you're okay, everybody? Or if not, I'll just sit here and do the talking, as I often do. So what else? I have some folks that have been here at AltSpace with me, Kate and Miles, and it's been interesting being part of their vegan experience. I'll say that, and there probably will be more content with them. You guys may remember if you saw a video that I made about a month ago with the hand crank washer. That was Kate. And so, yeah, that's been interesting. So Mad Blender says, I'm volunteering Vegan Sistah. So come on now. Oh, look, here we go. Ah, with a breath of fresh air. Come on, let this happen. Oh, snap. I'm good. How are you? Hey, y'all, it's Vegan Sister, if you didn't know.
Crazy, right? How are you? Well, you already said how you are, so. Um,
Well, okay. Well, I was in the I went to the hospital last week. I don't know if people saw that. Did I post it to my Snapchat? I think I ended up not posting it to my Snapchat. I think I was just too embarrassed. I think I was too embarrassed about it. So yeah, I was in the hospital last week, but it turns out that I was okay. I was just maybe exhausted. I think I just might have been exhausted. And I've never been so exhausted that like it actually was like manifesting itself as illness.
yeah.
But that happened. And about 3 hours into it, I was like, okay, y'all, I'm done. Can I leave? Can I go now? I don't want to be stuck, prodded, attached. They attached me to so many EKGs. I was like, and by the time it was over, I was done. But I found out that my cholesterol numbers are beautiful. My cholesterol numbers are gorgeous. So, for those of you who think that being vegan is not the healthy option, you're fools. Go vegan. Yeah. So I want to know how are you? How's life since the move? Let's
Yeah.
talk about.
So interesting. I actually am also sick. Well, I'm sick right now. And so Friday I took off work and I had like a horrible fever. I couldn't do anything. And I'm currently in the in-between phase where I don't have insurance yet from starting my new job. So I can't even go to the hospital yet to get said things taken care of, which is,
Yeah.
a product of living in America, unfortunately. So that's what it is. I don't know if you've been following me on Snapchat, but I have a new friend in my life named Charlie.
Oh, I need to get in there. I'm going right now. I'm going right now.
He's over,
No?
but he's a German Shepherd mix. Um, Like yeah, he's over here looking out the window right now. But I actually what is that? Oh yeah, see, that's me being sick right there.
Uh, it says Charlie
Yeah,
keeps growling at this situation. Interesting. So I want to see. We're gonna see. So we're gonna see more about your new pal Charlie. That's awesome. I
yeah,
know. Matt
exactly.
Blender's like, I thought you meant a BF, and
Exactly.
everybody else too. Me too. I was like, okay, let me see. But
Everybody trying to
all
like me right
friends,
now.
all friends count. All friends matter.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Yeah, ain't
Luna
nobody.
F. Like everybody down here is like, okay,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I mean, it is what it. I just moved. I don't even have time. I just started a new job. You know, Yeah, that's how it is. But the move was
Come
great.
on, yeah. Okay,
I
cool, yeah.
I love upstate New York. It is so gorgeous.
Hmm.
There's so many mountains. There's so many hiking trails. Like I am so in love with this place. And here's the funny story. So I currently live in a two-bedroom townhome
Okay,
and paying the same exact amount in rent that I was paying for a studio apartment in Chicago.
a bathroom, because you don't show off. You know it was a bathroom with a bed in the corner.
Oh my
You
gosh.
put a board and a mattress over the bathtub and call it a studio. That's what they. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I actually, to Luna's point, I didn't name him Charlie. Somebody, because I got him from the animal shelter nearby. I
Got you.
didn't name him
Hmm.
Charlie. But I think the name suits him. I call him Charles Barkley.
Okay, I know who that person is. I'm from Philly, so I know who that is. I
Okay.
guess that's what people do. I guess yeah. I was a host at the TGI Fridays back when it was a cool thing, and
Uh-huh.
the Sixers would show up, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I often found myself with Charles Barkley kind of being like, is this brother taller than me? Is he taller than me? I'm supposed to be getting all the attention here, yes, but Charles Barkley is well taller than me, yes. So cool. So you got a dog named Charles Barkley. You're living in a place that you like your place.
I
You
do.
like your place.
I love my new job. Still, I think as the older you get, and I think the different life experiences that you have, or at least that I have had, every time I move, it makes it so much more harder to make connections with people. And
Okay.
so I'm trying to just really put myself out there and try to make friends. But it is hard. It is so hard to make friends. Like once you're out of college, once you're in new jobs, you want your friends who are outside of work, who you don't necessarily just have to talk about work with. But I mean, that's hard. I need Tinder for friends is what I need.
Well, Tinder can be used for friends, I suppose. I suppose it's useful as that. I mean, I'm
Oh Lord.
just thinking about it. But I mean, I guess there's activities, right? I'm guessing there are things to do
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that might draw you into a crowd of people that are, either like-minded or share common interests. Yeah?
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, y'all down there, and hello, Glowing Me, hello, welcome. Y'all down there, Kearney says, my old dog was named Charlie, and I called him the same. Charles Barkley, interesting. All right, so first of all, all of you watching right now, I want to ask you to throw up some suggestions for how Vegan Sistah might connect with some new friends. I mean, I would say, because the things that I think to do to fill my time, like read a book, go to a movie. Oh, you guys just reminded me. I have library books that are due, so I need to go to the library. Those are things that aren't necessarily conducive to meeting people because they're all kind of, they're solo gigs, right? But what are the things that one does? Even if you go out dancing or to a bar, there's something about it that can be very isolating, right? That's not where you want to necessarily meet people.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the word meet for those of you who get that reference when we're talking about the club scene anyway. But it's a place to meet people. But in terms of like meeting people and being engaged, where there are discussions that might be going back and forth, where you can actually go like, oh, that person has interesting things to say. I would like to continue this conversation. Where are the places that you go?
Yeah.
And in upstate New York too, because it doesn't necessarily mean that those are going to be options where you are. So that's why I'm saying, all y'all out there, throw up some suggestions. People saying, oh, I have no idea. Do some activism. Kearney says do some activism. Clearly do some activism, right? But
Yeah.
also where? Because there's the activism spaces where people are, they just want to get you. They want to get you thrown in jail. Or the spaces where people are like really have a little bit more of an analysis too, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great idea, doing some activism.
I think it's
Sure.
important that we talk about today the stuff that happened yesterday at UVA.
Are you talking about the huge protest?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was. I guess it wasn't a protest. I guess it was a demonstration that.
Right.
It was not a demonstration. It was some kind of a gathering or rally for the alt-right.
So what happened was they were protesting that the city of Charlottesville took down a statue of Robert E. Lee. So
Yes.
they were coming together in Charlottesville to protest, and there were counter protesters. And one of the alt-right people, he essentially drove through the streets slamming people, and one person died. One of the counter protesters died yesterday. And
Wow.
yeah. 19 people ran over, just going me said, yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. And
So yeah, come on now. Yeah.
And especially because, I don't know, like the day before on Friday, they had a demonstration Friday night. And I think the imagery was extremely scary because they had torches and I wouldn't say uniforms, but they had like suggested clothing. So like their suggested clothing is a polo shirt and capri pants, I think. And it just is reminiscent of the Ku Klux Klan. Like, we're going to get our torches and our robes, but instead of robes, they now have polo shirts because that's a more, modern thing. And I think, I think it's a difference when, when the demonstrations that were had, like after, like the Women's March and stuff like that stuff is different. I think because the point of those protesters coming through with that imagery was to scare people. It wasn't about we're protesting that this statue was taken down. It was to scare people, and it was to scare minorities. And then, of course, yesterday there was a lot of violence. I forget what the name, they called themselves like the Vanguard Rights or the Vanguard Whites or something of that nature. But they're a specific group of these alt-right people, and they have shields and batons, and they dress as if they're police officials essentially, and they have this weaponry. And they were the ones who were causing a lot of this violence yesterday. But then, of course, the one individual who ran over counter protesters, and one of them ended up dying. And and as somebody said, like, yeah, it was terrorism. Like, it's terrorism. And Donald Trump has not said he hasn't announced white supremacists or denounced in his and he said
now
there was violence on side.
Wait, hold on a second.
Violence on both sides.
Hold on a second. You broke up. You
It
broke
was
up.
terrorism. It was terrorism.
Can you hear me? You broke up a
Yes.
little bit, so I want you to go back. Just as you were starting to talk about Donald Trump's response, I lost you a little bit. Do you mind going back? And I also pulled it up. So it was, and what's interesting is I watched about an hour of the live stream. And then I was actually in a board meeting from 1:30 yesterday until about 8 o'clock at night. And so I missed all of this. But I was watching the live stream, so I saw a little bit of what was happening, a little bit of how that agitation was taking place, a lot of hate speech. And it was apparently it was called the Unite the Right event. Does that sound familiar? And the person, the person who, it was a 32-year-old woman who was killed when it happened. And so you were talking about Donald Trump's response. Do you mind sort of going back and saying a little bit more about this and where you got your your news?
I got it from CNN and the Young Turks, but essentially his response was he was denouncing violence and bigotry, and he said that there was violence on bigotry on many sides. And I think what the problem with that is there was violence and bigotry on the side of white supremacists, and he won't denounce white supremacy or neo-Nazis or this alt-right movement that came in with the intention of being intimidating and hurtful, not with the intention of saying, we want property back. They didn't come for that. They came for something completely different. And what is everybody supposed to do? Are they supposed to just sit back and watch it happen? No, they're going to protest back. They're going to counter protest. And because of that, some violence broke out and people were killed. And it didn't have to be that way.
Right.
And it's a shame.
Yeah. It's so interesting, too, because that act of violence, we talk about what gets, and we talked a little bit about this in terms of, I talked a little bit about this. I made a video last week. I watched a film called Afghanistan, The Great Game, and talked about the history of violent action, imperialism, right, that's been taking place, basically centered in Europe throughout the world, and how now acts by certain groups just are not seen as violence. Like, we can't talk about certain groups, their actions as violence, even though they're part of this like really long history of violent action. But that's driving a car through a group. If that is not an act of, intended to cause fear, say you will not do this. You will not speak for yourself. You will not try to be empowered. Not in my city, right? It's very, very interesting. Come on.
I'm so tired of this narrative of this lone wolf, individualistic identity when it comes to these situations when it's white men. And when we, the terrorist attacks that have happened, the domestic terrorist attacks that have happened since, 2001, most of them have been committed by white men. I think, why aren't we talking about this issue?
Yeah, I mean, just it's again, it's a really interesting question. Like, what gets labeled violence? What gets labeled terrorism? How individualism is an expectation when we come to like the mainstream society, right? If a white person does something, we don't say, "Wow, white people are violent." If a black person does something, or five black people do something, or 100 black people do something, it's all black
Yeah.
people, right? It's all. If a woman does something, it's all women, right? If groups that are not the dominant, right? If you're not, if you don't fit the, whatever is considered like the dominant image of the day, you get to be, you don't get to have a say in what gets labeled what, right? And so
Yeah.
that's just the reality. But I think that regardless of the reality, we have to be willing to say that these things are not isolated to any one particular group, and
Right,
that
right, right.
many groups are capable of them. But I think it's the denial that is happening amongst certain groups that makes it so dangerous. Because
Right.
if I get to go and drop a bomb on your country and not have that be seen as a deplorable act, because it's just it's just the daily business, right? And the language, for example, that Donald Trump has been using against Korea, which is really violently charged language. It's like saying I want to fight, and we don't see that as that's the last that I imagine that's the last thing that anyone wants, is to start a nuclear war, right?
Right.
But you're allowed to take that stance if you're the United States, because they're in charge, right? The dominant, the dominant society gets to
Mm-hmm.
say gets to say what is considered criminal, what is considered out of the ordinary even. So some people have been commenting. So no love of the alt right here, but there's an extreme amount of violence coming from Antifa in many of these situations. That's really interesting. I'd love to hear more about that. Um, uh, Somebody says something. Just Glowing Me says they stay on code. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Um, Tom Hall comes in and says, "Watch the great game. Time well spent." I really do. I hope that folks will watch that. It really does. Um, Give us some more context around the violence that we see happening, particularly in Afghanistan right now, and what that's we're seeing the tail end of something, and we think we're like staving something off, but what we're actually seeing is a response to a few hundred years of aggression from the West. And so, yeah, thank you for watching that and for calling that out. Yeah, Tom Hall says, someone tell me what Antifa is, and I'm going to take a wild guess, and I think it's the anti-fascist movement, but it's a particular strain of anti-fascism that I think might come flavored with some violence, or maybe that's just again the messaging, in the same way that someone might describe Black Lives Matter as a terrorist organization, because you know it's out there. The messaging that we hear about it is such. So if anybody does know about Antifa and wants to talk about it, I'd love to hear some more about that. Loving the Plan says the fringes are dangerous. Stay centered. Yes. Yeah, Matt Blender says that, yeah, Tom Hall, Antifa is anti-fascism. Just Glowing Me says on code means whites won't call this what it is because it's white people. And Kearney says anti-fascism through fascism, and I guess the LOL is some humor, but I think maybe it's really pointing out some irony there. So more from you. Um, with that, with what happened yesterday, what would you like to see as a response from our president? What do you think would be a
Yeah.
more reasonable response?
He needs to call this what it is. This was a terrorist attack. This was domestic terrorism, which is what occurred. He also
Hmm.
needs to denounce white supremacy neo-Nazi groups, which are the people who voted for him, who actually praised his response when he came out, because they said something like, Trump didn't blame us, blah. You have neo-Nazis group praising the way the President Trump has responded
Hmm.
to this domestic terrorist attack. That is So there are a number of people like Marco Rubio, Governor Chris Christie, and a lot of other Republicans that are now calling out the president on Twitter. Republican people are calling out the president for not accurately responding to them. Also, the president was kind of silent for a very long time when this was all going on. This is the president who has no problems calling out Mitch McConnell. He has no problems firing people left and right, and he has no problems speaking his voice when it benefits him. However, when people are dying in the streets, he is silent.
Right.
Well, he was silent for quite some time, and that's a problem.
Right. Okay, so hello. Oh, first of all, welcome. O'Kale Yale has joined us in the chat and says the governor of Virginia said what we needed. Our president said what we needed our president to say. So I'd love to check that out. So do you happen to, O'Kale? Yeah. Do you happen to? Can you distill it down into something that will fit in the chat, or what do you want to share? And how do you feel, Vegan Sister? Do you feel like the heat has been on you? Do you have any final things that you want to share? And maybe we can, now that you've kicked the ball off and clearly helped establish our theme for today's live stream, maybe we can hear from some other folks down there who know a little bit about the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I will jump off and let somebody else come on. So I'm excited to hear other people's thoughts on this.
I can't tell you how thrilled I am and how wonderful it was to have you.
Absolutely. Me too.
Back in the fold. And I'm sure this will happen. And I hope this happens again soon. Yes?
Absolutely. Yes.
All right, my dear. So thank you all. Thank you, Vegan Sister. And we'll hopefully be hearing from you continued down in the chat box.
Yes.
All right. So, y'all, that was Vegan Sister reminding me of something I actually had, like I said before, I had been watching. There was a live stream that was going on yesterday from that protest. And thank you so much for the 400 likes, Mad Blender. From the protest, and I had been watching it before I had to go. And my sense was, because of the rhetoric that I was hearing in the crowd, that something was likely going to happen. So I was kind of glued to the screen. I was glued to the screen because I wanted to be able to say, okay, this happened, and then this happened, and then like be able to share all the, share the progression of things and how the violence escalated, as opposed to hearing it from, filtered to me through the news, which is biased in its own ways, whether it's biased from the progressive side or the regressive side, however you want to say it. So now that Vegan Sister, is there anybody who'd like to come on? O'Kale, you were talking about the governor of Virginia saying what needed to be said. Do you want to share that with us? Do you want to come on and guest? Is there anyone else who has information on what happened yesterday in Charlotte? Or is there anyone who just wants to comment on this, the emergence of groups, fascist groups, Klan related groups, Nazi related groups into the mainstream? When the Tea Party was on the rise and we kind of saw them and maybe giggled a little bit, this reminds me very much of that. It's something that started very small but has not gone away in 10 years, right? In 10 years, we still have a Tea Party that's very vocal and very much a part of, our mainstream political discourse. Are Nazis going to become part of the mainstream political discourse? Matt Blender says, O'Kale says, basically he called it what it was, white supremacists trying to spread hate, and we will not tolerate it. It is un-American and not patriotic at all. Yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I want to see how they back that up. I wonder what actions are going to be taken. I listened to Richard Spencer interview the other day, and it's amazing how not normal he makes his ideology sound. How normal. I think what you're saying is how normal he makes his ideology sounds. O'Kale, says, I'm sorry, at work, wish you could guess. Yes, I wish you could guess as well. And I hope that I hope that whatever work is something that makes you happy. clearly you have a little bit of time to peek in on this live stream, so that's cool. Yes. Um, so yeah, so we have Richard Spencer kind of appeared on the scene after the election of Donald Trump, and I don't know how much of this is the smoke screen covering up what should be really of concern. There are, questions of what is going on with the environment and global warming and the denial of these things. And you have individuals from the administration or who are connected to the administration because of the agencies that they either run or are connected to, like the Environmental Protection Agency. So we have these individuals being censored and silenced and fired. And, we had someone who was the head of an agency that was working in Alaska to ensure that citizens, we're talking about Alaska, these are US citizens, were safe with the rate of melting of the ice caps and the effects of that. And we have huge chunks, like, island-sized chunks of ice being set loose, you know into the oceans, and the dangers that are created for individuals. And so you had someone who was working with folks in Alaska who, because they were vocal about the dangers, the very real and present dangers to United States U.S. citizens, they were taken off their post and placed in a finance office somewhere where they could do no harm. You see this happening, and one has to wonder, what's the end game? If it's not, in at least ensuring the security of U.S. citizens. Maybe not that I think what is happening on a global scale is in any way acceptable, but you would think that at least there would be, the facade of caring about the lives of, the people in the country that elected you. David Duke basically told Trump that he can't, or better not say anything against, so that you feel like there are factions within the Republican Party who are sending a threatening message towards Donald Trump. I hear that. I don't know that Donald Trump is the type of person who would necessarily respond to by getting in line. He seemed to be the type of person who doubles down on his ignorance when he wants to. So if he had a mind to do something decent, I'd hope he'd want to double down on that as well. Because they can out him in the White House. You're saying that David Duke can. I wonder what's that about. Because they put him in the White House. I was going to say, what can they out the president about? Do you know something that I don't know? Just glowing me, but no. What you meant to say was they can put him out of the White House. I would argue that this whole situation indeed is very American. This is Trey Legal says. I agree. I agree that this is very, very American. It's so interesting because I've been watching these films for reviewed, and I watched a film last night called The Invitation, which I don't think I'm going to do a review of, but I'll talk about it here. It's basically, a group of people are invited to a house. It's sort of a cult-ish thing, and not too many spoilers, but it goes bad. But throughout the evening, one of the people at the party is like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. But everyone else is telling them, what are you talking about? You're making it weird. You're making it weird by calling things out. And I feel like that's the US right now, is that things are so blatantly wrong. Like, there's no way that you can look at everything that's going on and say that this is okay. But we have, it seems to me, the message that what's being reflected back to us via the television, via the media, is that we are all just so happy with our stuff. We want to go shopping. We want to go on vacation. We want to do our drugs. We want to be entertained. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know if those images match up. I don't know if what is being presented to to us through the mainstream is truly what is being experienced by people. Obviously, if you watch enough YouTube, the channels that seem to be uplifted are the ones that are about as little as possible, right? As little as possible, are as the challenge as little as possible. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is what is desired by the average person. It just means that the people who control the mechanism are pushing those messages, right? There's a way that they can suggest, the videos that they want us to watch are the ones that are being suggested, right? So Cheetah's in the house. That's interesting. What's up, man? Good morning. So let's see what's going on. So we're having a little bit of a conversation about what happened in Charlotte, North Carolina yesterday, where a rally was held protesting the removal of a statue of Robert E. Lee, a Unite the Right rally, it was called. There was a counter rally of folks who were, representing groups like Black Lives Matter. And during the event, someone drove a vehicle through a crowd. A total of 19 people were injured, and a 32-year-old woman was killed in the car ramming incident. Yeah, so we're just responding to that. We've talked a little bit about the president's response, which was feeble, to say the least, and the responses from some of our other politicians that were better, but in terms of what action steps are going to be made, and like what is going to be the conversation about this. What will we be talking about next week? Are we going to be talking about the real violent threat that is present in the rise of fascism and this renewed embracing of our American roots in racism? Are we going to be talking about that, or are we going to just be talking about, well, everybody was saying nasty words, right? But not everybody got in a truck and drove it through a crowd. So what are we going to talk about? If anyone can tell me how the helicopter was crashed at the rally, a helicopter crashed at the rally? This is new news, because I'm kind of trying to get what's coming through the stream on CNN. So there's a little bit about the suspect. The driver was James Alex Fields Jr., a 20-year-old from Maumee, Ohio, is being held at a Virginia jail on suspicion of second-degree murder, malicious wounding, and failure to stop in an accident that resulted in death. Three other men were arrested Saturday. One of them faces charges of carrying a concealed handgun, and the other is charged with disorderly conduct. The third man, originally from Virginia, was arrested on suspicion of assault and battery. So yeah, so there's news. Basically, there's news breaking about it. Again, as I said, I really wonder what the conversations are going to be. Obviously, I'm hoping that there'll probably be some kind of a follow-up on shows like Democracy Now! Somebody talked about Vegan Sistah was talking about getting news from the Young Turks. I've been a little disappointed in what's been going on with the Young Turks. I don't blame them for being angry. They're obviously progressive, and they are fighting to see a more progressive world. But I've been a little disappointed with the rhetoric. The analysis is not as keen as one would like it to be. They seem to talk about these incidents as if they are somehow isolated and not part of a whole, this is the society that we've constructed around ourselves, right? These are the privileges that we enjoy, and these privileges come from, these privileges don't just appear magically, right? It takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of force to ensure that we get to continue enjoying the lives that we live here in the United States. Trey Legal says, I'm extremely disappointed with the Young Turks as well. Yeah, I understand that people want Trump to condemn these acts of hatred, but he has proven time and time again that is where he stands and thrives. Yeah, it's really, but but here's, I mean, for example, when he first got on the scene, right? We had one set of people who were kind of at the forefront, right? We heard a lot from Steve Bannon, right? We were hearing a lot from Kellyanne Conway, and those folks, we've seen those folks really pushed to the background. And I was kind of the opinion that maybe the administration was trying to um, have a more mainstream face, um, at least a more mainstream face, right? They didn't want those more radical, like Steve Bannon is just radical. He's just a radical racist, right? He's he just, I mean, his whole standpoint is about the dismantling of all of the civil liberties, right? He wants to see all of those things stripped away. He's Mr. Like, if there was anybody that was going to see to the U.S. becoming a fascist state, it was going to be Steve Bannon. But he's now just, you don't hear from him. And there are folks that say the only reason that he is even still around is because a Steve Bannon who is not in the White House would be very dangerous to the White House. So my question is, what is to be gained by not speaking out against these? The president is in the White House now, right? So now he's got to be everybody's president, right? And if he wants to hold on to what he has, he's going to have to figure out a way to be everyone's president. And here are these opportunities being presented to him to be everyone's president, and he's refusing to, take these opportunities and continuing to show himself to be just this irresponsible, reckless, bully, right? He's just kind of a bully, and using deporting himself in a way that is just not very presidential. So how is this serving him? Who is this serving? The only ones giving him good press are Breitbart and Fox, so he's got to cater to them, I suppose. That's Mad Blender saying that. Yeah, possibly, I agree. The BAC has given a travel warning to blacks. The NAACP has given a travel warning to blacks about traveling through Missouri. Yes, I'd heard about that. But things are so, I mean, it's what's so bad is that, and I understand the media, and I do it too, right? So we want to be sensational, right? We want people to be reading our newspapers. We want people to be watching our channels. And so we want to present news in the most sensational way possible. So it's really hard to look at what's being reported in the media as a measure of how we should be responding, right? And we also have to keep in mind that some of these are just tactics. They're smoke screens. So you have to decide whether you want to focus on Trump's travel ban, or you want to focus on Trump's position about trans people in the military, or do you want to start looking at what is happening on a policy level? What legislations are being passed? How are particular offices shifting? The powers of particular offices shifting? Who has access to what? Who can make decisions about what? How is that shifting? And those are not very newsworthy things. But when we hear that someone has been fired from their job and moved into another office, I think that that's where we, as at least U.S. citizens, should get concerned, because what's being set up here? There's only so much that can happen. You pass a ban, you say this, okay, eventually people are going to organize and they're going to shut that down. The same as with, everything else, concluding gay marriage, right? Eventually you're going to fight, that's going to pass. But in the meantime, what's going to be lost? If we read the law, for example, if we look at like what's going on in terms of homeland security, right? What liberties are being stripped away from us, right? I just assume now that, somebody's listening on my phone. I assume that my camera, like somebody's like, if I when I turn on my camera, that that information is being warehoused somewhere, and the government may or may not decide that because of something that I've said that they want to flag that, right? Are we concerned about those things? And certainly we should be, concerned with whether or not the US, for example, something that, I didn't hear very many people talking about was Trump saying that he wanted to go into Afghanistan and take the mineral deposits that were there. Now that's just piracy. And I don't know how many people were speaking out against that. And and that's to me is truly frightening when the president of a country can say, "Hey, I'm going to go in and take their minerals." That's piracy, right? When you just use, or just straight up robbery, right? That's a mugging, right? You know what I mean? So we're mugging Afghanistan now. That's our end game, is that we're gonna mug Afghanistan. So those are things that cause me concern. And meanwhile, all of this rhetoric is having a material effect on our society, because we have protest in the street where someone decides that the way that I'm going to deal with this is drive a car through a crowd of people, injuring 19 and killing one. So a lot to be thought through, right? A lot of analysis needs to be done about what exactly is going on here, and what exactly may or may not be the end game, and figuring out, who has the information that we need, right? And where do we go to get that, and really digging through that and trying to make sense of it. So we have reached the end of the hour. Yeah, full on thuggish administration. Our electronic communications are being recorded and archived, so modify your behavior accordingly. Yeah. This is totally off topic. Did anyone hear about North Korea saying they're going to nuke Guam in like 2 days? I've been hearing, this is the rhetoric that's going on. They've been threatening to fire missiles over Japan and into the ocean off the coast of Guam, not necessarily Guam itself. This is the first that I'm hearing that they were talking about literally nuking Guam. Is that what you're talking about, Kearney? Is it the firing missiles over Japan in the direction of Guam, or are they talking about literally now just nuking Guam? So it's the actual they are talking about killing the inhabitants. They threatened to kill the inhabitants of the island, including the I'm going to say at least thousands of U.S. Service folks who are stationed on Guam. Yeah, yeah. I'd heard that. I'd heard what you were talking about, and that's the rhetoric that I feel is very dangerous. I said something in my last video that it's like there's a hostage. Somebody has a room full of kids hostage, and the hostage negotiator gets on the phone and says, "Yeah, I dare you, punk. I dare you to shoot those kids." I feel like a little bit that's what our president is doing right now. It's really, really disturbing. And this is what I mean by, not deporting himself in a way that I consider very, very presidential. So that's where we are. So for those of you who are interested, I am going to be continuing with the reviews next week. There's a handful of films that I just think that folks will really love. And for some reason, these are all films that I think bring conversations that we've have been having into context. Certainly, watching if you're interested in, for example, the conversations that we've been having about the Muslim state, the Islamic State, and how a lot of that activity is the result of hundreds of years of aggression from the West, including England, including Russia, including the United States. Watch Afghanistan, the Great Game. That's the Rory Stewart documentary. If you are at all following kind of the rise of fascism in Europe, and you'd like to see a film that kind of paints an image of that or what that could be, I would recommend watching the Er ist Vida Da, which is Look Who's Back, the film about the, what if Hitler returned to Russia. I think next week I'm going to be talking about the film I Am Not Your Negro, which is a documentary about James Baldwin. So, and you guys know that I have a special place in my heart for James Baldwin. So look out for that coming. So I'll be continuing with the reviews. And then, of course, I'll be in Chicago. And so the following week, I'll be coming back with some news from Chicago and the event that I'll be participating in there. But I just watched The Road to Hell, and I think I just watched Road to Hell, I think it's called. So yeah, that is Jack in the background. I think he's ready. I think he's been up here in the attic for too long. Yeah, he's sweet. He's doing much better. Thanks everyone. So let me see. I want to catch everybody's final things. Someone said life support, and I don't know if that's a suggestion for a film to watch. Um, Somebody says go back into your coma, more like life support. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm not following. Just Glowing Me. You might have to send me a message offline for clarification. Anyway, you guys, it's been great having you here, spending some more time with you. Again, I hope that this archives on YouTube, so those of you who missed the live stream or who didn't see all of it will be able to catch it on the YouTube channel. That's it for our live stream today. Thanks so much to Vegan Sister for being our guest today, and absolutely loves to all of you. Those of you watching on YouTube, like this video if you like it, share it, comment, subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourselves. Oh wait, this is Reg signing off. Love yourselves. Peace.